We are talking a little bit about this transition, and as Melissa, who also did a great job a few weeks ago, unpacked this passage in Joshua with this biblical imagery that comes up so many times in the Bible, in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, and it revolves around the Jordan River. And every time you hear the Jordan River mentioned in the scriptures, it's usually some sort of a transition is happening, or a boundary, or you're on the precipice, or a cleansing or renewal or something like that is going down every time the Jordan River is mentioned. So we are at this place of, we know we're stepping out. We know that the new owners here, if you weren't here a few weeks ago, the new owners here, which I think we've told everybody this a few times at this point, but just in case you haven't heard, have not offered to extend our lease. They have a different plan, a long-term plan for this building that's going to put us in a position where we're going to step out before we were planning to step out, because we're going to step out before our new construction is done. Now, also, if you haven't heard, we have started second phase of our construction on our building, which is really exciting. I had a meeting with a couple of intercessors in our church about a month ago, and it confirmed a dream that I had the night before. I'd had this really strange dream. And in the dream, it was someone, I won't throw them under the bus, but they were in the dream in a good way, but they've been helping us with the process, and they've been a part of our team, and they were in the dream interacting with some people at the city, but I felt like a negative component to what was going on in the dream. And it disturbed me a little bit. I was like, what is that? What does that mean? It just felt wrong. It felt not good. So I had a dream about City Hall and all the places that we have to go to push through these, all the paperwork and the site plan and all those things. But the dream didn't feel right. And then I had a meeting with two of our intercessors, and that just means people that are constantly in prayer for our church. And after I left that conversation, I said, you know what? I think that there's like a spiritual hold on our permit. And that might sound strange to you, but to quote another gentleman in our church, we're not building a gas station. You know, the enemy, they build Wawas in like 3 or 4 days, right? And there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, I think even the enemy likes Wawa, like everybody likes Wawa. So, but when you're building a church, there's a spiritual endeavor that you're embarking on. There's something spiritual happening. And what we're doing is not first and foremost about the building, but the building does matter because there's a space. You know, it's like the old theologian that said God looks at this planet and there's not 1 square inch that he doesn't say mine. That's mine, right? So we're taking ground back from the enemy. And there was a church in that community for a really long time. We've met people that were baptized in that church. We've met people that came to faith in that church. That church was there for a really long time, these 2 buildings that we've purchased that we're renovating. But there's also has not been a lot going on there for a really long time. And we're coming in and we're revitalizing a presence in a community, a neighborhood in a community. And that's ground right now that's just neutral. It's not really being used for God's purposes. So we intend to use it for God's purposes. So the enemy doesn't like that. So this is a physical endeavor. This is a generosity endeavor. This is a literal move. This is a literal shift. But don't forget, this is spiritual. So when you think about the building, wish us the best, hope. Those of you that have given, thank you. Keep giving, but also pray. This is a spiritual endeavor. So to bring that story to a conclusion, when I began to sense that the dream was connected to what I was talking over with our intercessors, we just began to reach out to a lot of people in the church, and we said, will you pray? Because I think there might be a spiritual block to us receiving our permit. Well, our people started praying, and I started to hear different things from different individuals. And one lady, trusted person in our church that prays a lot, told me that she saw an image while she was praying of a stack of papers, and it was like our permit just kept getting moved to the bottom, right? Well, we commissioned everybody to pray like on a Monday, and people were praying really diligently. And by Wednesday, we got an approved, this was a few weeks ago, we got an approved site plan. with a guarantee that the permit was coming, and then within another 10 to 12 days, we had the permit in hand. So it reminded me that we are prying this out of the enemy's hands. This is a spiritual endeavor, okay? Every good thing that God has for us in St. Nicholas is spiritual. It's things that he wants to do. We're not going there for any other reason, first and foremost, than that he wants us to be there, right? He's confirmed that. So we're crossing over, and we're going to have this in between, and there's a few facilities. One I've mentioned before, which is the Korean church that's already in the neighborhood. The other one is an opportunity with a building that has the space that's not being used, but there's some other logistics there. It's an older YMCA. And we are exploring both of these options and praying into what might be the best, and that involves, what does it cost? What does facilities look like? This one puts us in the neighborhood. This one has a parking lot. It's like going back and forth on all the different pros and cons, but also praying that God's going to bring one to the forefront over the next few weeks. And if there's a surprise option that we don't know about, we're open to that as well. We want to be where he wants us to be more than just our planning and preparation. So when you think about the transition, also pray, right? We have good options. We're doing our due diligence, but we want to end up where God is leading. He knows everything. He's outside of time. He can already see us there worshiping him, and we need to pray that he helps us see and cooperate with what he's doing. So just continue to pray that way. If I ever wrote, okay? All right. If I ever wrote a movie script, which I haven't, and I could actually write one really quick now, I think, with AI. But if I ever wrote a movie script, I've always had this idea about the moment Joshua is participating in the funeral of Moses. And it would be one of those movies that starts about 3/4 of the way through. Then you start going backwards and you come up to the moment that you started, and then you play out like the last 30 minutes. So here's how it would go. If I wrote a script, if any of you are producers, just give me a chance, all right? Joshua's participating in the funeral of Moses. The Israelites are walking, and here's this great, humble, just almost fake-like person, Moses, that God raised up to lead them out of lead them out of Egypt to a land that was promised to them. And he did all these amazing things. He judged Egypt's gods through the plagues. He parted a sea. He dropped manna from heaven. He made water come out of a rock. He led them by a cloud in the day and a pillar of fire by night. Moses was this amazing, wonderful shepherd, prophet, beautiful, just interceder, would stand between God and the people and plead with God on their behalf. He was just a wonderful person. And Joshua had grown up under him and had been one of his ministry assistants when he was really young. And there's these short little snippets you hear in the story of Israel in their journey to the promised land, where you'll be like, Moses was under the tent of the presence of the Lord, and some other people were there, and God's presence was filling the tent, and everyone leaves. And then you just read like this little sentence, and it says, but Joshua stayed back. And you're like, oh, okay, so Joshua was receiving from God. He had a hunger to be with God, even at an early age. And that's why Moses recognized this, and God spoke to Moses about Joshua being the next person. But here's Joshua, and he's in the procession. His mentor, his father figure, this great, wonderful person, Moses, is being laid to rest. And during the procession of the funeral, I would write it this way: Joshua keeps flashing back. Like he sees things maybe on the way, he sees a rock, and he flashes back to the rock, the water coming out of the rock, right? He goes a little bit further, and someone drops a piece of bread on the ground, and he flashes back to the first day that the manna fell from heaven, right? They walk a little bit further, and he looks over and he sees a body of water, and he flashes back to the Red Sea parting, right? And it's just this recount of everything that God had done up until that moment over the decades that brings them to this current place. Finally, you make it to real time. He flashes back to Moses, telling him, God has told me that I'm not going there, but you're going to lead them there, which is terrifying, right? Because he's been number 2 for a while now, and number 2 is different than the seat Moses was in. Moses was in the hot seat, okay? So now he's saying, wait a minute, we're almost there. I've been with you, but you're telling me that you're not going over there and I have to lead us all there? And Moses says, yes, but God's going to be with you the way he's with me. And that's great. Like, you want to believe that, right? So that would be the struggle. Moses is buried, and then the movie would end with the next 30 to 40 minutes, whatever. If Christopher Nolan directed it, it would be 5 hours long. But we get to the end. I'm excited about the Odyssey. But we get to the end, and he crosses over, and they march around Jericho, and the movie ends with Jericho falling, right? The famous story of this wicked city that was given over to evil that God delivered into their hands. So that's how I would write it. And I've got thousands of years on the other side of the story to think about it, reflect on it. Heard the story a few times myself. Maybe you've never read the story. There's actually a book in the Old Testament we've now titled Joshua. It's about his life. First few chapters cover a lot of this. But in Joshua 1, this is the way that it reads. After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, son of Nun, like N-U-N, not none, like he didn't have. Moses' aide, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now, if you take that name Joshua, it's kind of close to Yeshua. You could almost argue that Joshua, it means the Lord brings salvation. Okay, it means salvation comes from the Lord, something along those terms. So the name translates pretty closely to Jesus, the Jewish name for Jesus, Yeshua. Salvation belongs to the Lord. Moses, my servant, is dead. Now then, you and all these people get ready to cross the Jordan into the land I'm about to give them to the Israelites. I will give you every place where you set your foot, as I promised Moses. Your territory will extend from the desert to Lebanon, and from the great river, the Euphrates, all the Hittite country, to the great sea on the west. No one will be able to stand up against you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. If you look at a map now, you see the Euphrates River sort of travels over kind of the outside of Lebanon, outside of Jordan, through Iraq, but it flows southeast, and at some point it links up with the Tigris River. So the Euphrates and the Tigris River connect, and then they flow into, what's the sea? I just forgot it. But they flow into one of the oceans over there, one of the seas over there, okay? So he says, no one will be able to stand up against you all the days of your life. As with Moses, so I'll be with you. Be strong and courageous, because you will lead these people to inherit the land I swore to their forefathers to give them. Be strong and very courageous. Be careful to obey all the law my servant Moses gave you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left, that you may be successful wherever you go. Do not let this book of the law depart from your mouth. Meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do everything written in it. Then you will be prosperous and successful. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. So Joshua ordered the officers of the people, go through the camp and tell the people, get your supplies ready. 3 days from now, you will cross the Jordan here to go in and take possession of the land the Lord your God is giving you for your own. So Jocelyn and I had an opportunity, it's been a while now, about 4 years ago, to visit Israel. And the war started over there, the major conflict that hasn't stopped, or off and on, started in 2023. We were there in 2022, and you could feel the tension over there, I'll be honest. But we had an opportunity to step out into the Jordan River, and I had a picture of us right there. So that's the Jordan. And I don't know what I imagined, but maybe there's other parts of it that are wider than that. But, where we were, it just sort of felt like almost a creek, It's a river, but where we were, it felt more like a creek, It was a little bit smaller, a little bit narrow. Very cold, very refreshing because it's very hot there. But it was neat to walk through those waters and just identify a place in the story, ourselves in the story. When you look back in the Old Testament, you see these moments that happen in the Jordan River. There's this moment where two prophets, Elijah and Elisha, sort of walk through it, parts for them. They walk through it. Elijah and Elisha both did a lot of miracles. They walk through it. There's another story in the Old Testament where this guy named Naaman became leprous, and he was a leader. He was kind of an important guy, and he went to see the prophet, and the prophet told him, if you want your leprosy to go away, you need to go dunk yourself 7 times in the Jordan River. It was the Jordan. And he said, I'm not doing that. That river's gross. Literally, I'm too good for that. Why not another option? And it was actually, I believe, if I remember the story correctly, the person that was traveling with him, like his right hand, said, hey, if the prophet said the Jordan's going to help you, this guy has a track record. Why don't you try it? So he goes and he dips 1 time, nothing, 2 times, nothing, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. And on the 7th time, he comes up and the leprosy's gone. So there's this symbolism, but it's not just symbolism, it's reality in the Old Testament of the Jordan River bringing healing and being a precipice crossing over from one place to the next, kind of a milestone moment. So we flash forward to Matthew 3:13 through 17. Then Jesus came from Galilee to the Jordan to be baptized. Right? So if you're reading that and you're rooted deeply in the stories of the scriptures and the stories of the Old Testament, you know about Elijah and Elisha, you know about Naaman, you know about Joshua, Yeshua crossing over the Jordan and God giving them promised land, you know about the leprosy being cleared, you know about all the moments that happened in this river, and then you read Jesus showed up at the Jordan to be baptized. And John says what I think any one of us would say if we knew who Jesus was. This is John the Baptist. He says, John tried to deter him, saying, I need to be baptized by you, and you come to me? Jesus replied, let it be so now. It is proper for us to do this to fulfill all righteousness. Then John consented. Jesus is baptized, the Holy Spirit falls on him, and he starts his ministry, right? And it fulfills all righteousness because Jesus was baptized. You go, why was Jesus baptized? Did Jesus have to get forgiven for his sins? No. We are baptized into him. He was the first one to be baptized. So when we're baptized in his name. Jesus was baptized representing what was going to happen with us. So now we're baptized in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. That is the only other place in the scripture. The Jordan River is the only other place in the scriptures that we see the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The other spot was creation. In the beginning was God, in the beginning the Word was God, and Jesus is the Word, and the Spirit hovered over the waters. Okay? So we have all 3 in a different form, but all 3 in the beginning, and then we have all 3 at the new beginning. Okay? We have all 3 at the beginning, and we have all 3 at the new beginning. God speaks over Jesus, this is my Son in whom I'm well pleased. John the Baptist looks up and sees the Spirit fall on him like a dove. Right? So we have the Trinity right there at the Jordan River. What an amazing, powerful moment that must have been. Okay? I thought what you guys talked about a few weeks ago was spot on with Melissa unpacking this passage and talking about transition and being on the precipice and what's going to happen next and all of those things. I have it's just driving home what she said. How many have been a part of this process of us moving to the new building the whole time? Like you've been here since we first started talking about this, okay? Yeah. So it's been a long time, right? The architectural plans took a long time. The permit took a long time. There's been parts of this process that have taken so much longer than we thought they were going to take. And, you get like, we're gonna move to a new building fatigue. Like when we did the groundbreaking last fall, we were thinking we were gonna have the permits within a couple of months. Like that was just gonna be perfect, right? So we did the groundbreaking, we started the demolition, and then here we are 8 or 9 months later, and we're just now getting the second permit. It's been a process, okay? It's been a process. And now, to top it all off, we don't even necessarily want to be here, but we have to leave, right? We didn't even ask if we could stay, but we have to go, okay? So now God's saying, look, Joshua, listen, you're going to cross over. It's really weird, though. I'm going to change the terms. You're not going to follow Moses over. Now you're going to lead. Hey, RCC, you're crossing over, but I'm going to change the terms. You're going to go somewhere different first, and then you're going to go into the new building. I'm changing the terms. And he has a purpose for that. But we have to decide. These seasons, I want to be very open and honest with you pastorally. These seasons are a time for all of us to assess our heart. I haven't had a lot of conversations with a lot of you about stepping out, so this isn't coming from anywhere other than just prayer and discernment. But when we step out into a season of uncertainty, it's an opportunity to ask ourselves if we're leaning in or if we're stepping back. Okay? Are we leaning in or are we stepping back? I have probably had as much as anybody else in the church frustration with the building process going as slowly as it has. Okay? But everything that we've wanted God to do and everything that we've asked God to do and everything that we felt like he was going to do, he has done. We have a loan, we have a permit, we've started construction. It's happening, right? But we've got this strange little season in between. And now we're asking God, what's happening in this season? Okay? And I want you to ask him that. God, what's happening in this season? I want you to ask him what that means for you personally. Some of you have your own seasons you're in. I'm looking out now, and there's like people we're going to pray with after the service because you're in your own season in the midst of our season, right? But as we step out into this season, I want you to ask the Lord, like, God, what do you have for me? Are you asking me to lean in? Are you asking me to reconsider? Are you asking me to double down? Where's my heart with RCC? Okay, where's my heart with RCC? And the reason I say that, and I think that's a question for you to start asking and praying now, is because the comfortability and the normalcy that we're experiencing now is going to change. It's going to change. Wherever we go next is going to be a little bit uncomfortable, right? There's going to be some excitement initially, but there's also going to be some uncomfortability. If we go to the Korean church, we'll be sharing a building. We might have to change our service times a little bit. We might have to adapt, okay? You want to ask God to prepare your heart for that, okay? I'm asking God to prepare my heart for that and show us exactly what that looks like and what we need to do and where we need to go. You know, before they cross over, if you go to chapter 3, God tells Joshua to tell Israel to consecrate themselves. Okay? Consecrate themselves. In other words, search your heart, search your motives, search your mind, and say, God, set us apart for what you're about to do. Set us apart for what you're about to do. There were some things that they needed to get rid of. There were some things that they needed to repent of. There were some things that they needed to be done with. There were some things that they needed to step more into. Like God's saying here, I'm going to do everything for you that I'm telling you I'm going to do, but also stay grounded in my word. Don't turn to the right, don't turn to the left, because that's going to protect you. The words that I've given you in the wilderness are going to protect you in the new land, okay? So, I think God told Joshua, be strong and courageous 3 times, because Joshua was a little scared. That may not have happened over the course of like one little prayer. I'm scared, God, be strong. I'm scared, God, be courageous. I'm scared, God, have I not told you, be strong and courageous? That might have been a prayer that Joshua had with him over weeks, maybe a month, who knows? But God's reaffirming, I'm with you. I'm with you, okay? So, whether it be your health, which is the story that many of us are in, whether it be your marriage, whether it be your parenting, whether it be your friendship, whether it be something going on with a sibling, whether it be something going down at work, whether there's a change on the horizon, whether there's a shift on the horizon, whether there's something you're dealing with. Maybe it's a ministry you're a part of. I don't know all the fill in the blanks, but you do. God's asking you, okay, first of all, do you believe that I'm with you? He's reminding you to be strong and courageous. And he's telling you that he's going to be with you wherever you go. Matthew 27:46 says, and about the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani. That is, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why have you forsaken me? The promise to Joshua is, I'll never leave you or forsake you. Okay? The promise to Joshua, Yeshua, very closely to Jesus' name, I'll never leave you or forsake you. Okay? Jesus' prayer, why have you forsaken me? Okay? And we will never know that feeling. We'll be forsaken by people, and we probably have. Some of you may have been forsaken by people that should have never forsaken you, like parents, loved ones. But we will never be forsaken by God because Jesus was forsaken by God so that we never would be. He was forsaken. We're covered in his righteousness and accepted on his behalf. Okay? So in the middle of this season, RCC, you go like, man, this all made sense. We were going to leave Belfort and go to 3405. We're not forsaken. Okay? We're not forsaken. God has a purpose in this. Okay? I'm confident. I'm nervous, but I'm confident. Okay? It's going to be okay. But boil that down to you. Whatever you have on the horizon, whatever news you just got, whatever news you're going to get next week, it might be hard, it might be discouraging, it might be painful, but you will never be forsaken. Okay? You will never be forsaken. Okay?